4. Was the law nailed to the cross? The big misunderstanding. The Sunday worship deception. 20 lies that deny God's Sabbath. The deadly confusion. They say the law was nailed to the cross. But what if I told you that twisting this one verse has led millions to trample God's holy Sabbath underfoot, thinking they're free when they're really disobeying? The question is not whether something was nailed to the cross, but what was nailed. And this misunderstanding has become Satan's masterstroke of deception. The twisted text, Colossians 2:14. Let's confront it head on. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, nailing it to his cross. Colossians 2:14. Most Sunday defenders claim, see, the whole law, including the Sabbath, was nailed to the cross. But slow down. The verse doesn't say 10 commandments. It says handwriting of ordinances, which refers to the ceremonial law, not the moral law. God's 10 commandments were not handwritten by Moses. They were written by God's own finger on stone, Exodus 31:18. But the Mosaic ordinances, animal sacrifices, feast days, purification rituals, those were handwritten by Moses in a book, Deuteronomy 31:24-26. That's what was nailed, not God's eternal law. Sabbath versus shadows. Paul continues in Colossians 2:16-17, Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come. Aha! Some say, see, the Sabbath was just a shadow. But look closer. These Sabbath days are plural and part of the shadowy ceremonial system, not the weekly Sabbath of the 10 Commandments. The weekly Sabbath points backward to creation, Genesis chapter 2:2-3. The ceremonial Sabbaths, like the Day of Atonement or Feast of Trumpets, pointed forward to Christ's sacrifice and were shadows. Those were temporary. The weekly Sabbath is eternal. God's law is not against us. Paul says the ordinances were against us, but the 10 Commandments are never described that way. In fact, the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just and good. Romans 7:12. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. Romans 7:22. Would Paul delight in something he thought was nailed to the cross? Of course not. He preached it, lived it, and honored the Sabbath throughout his ministry. Sunday worship rides on this lie. The moment you convince people that God's law is dead, you can insert any tradition in its place. Sunday worship is a product of that lie. If the 4th commandment was nailed to the cross, then why do we still keep the other 9? No one says murder or adultery are abolished, only the Sabbath. Why? Because it exposes the rebellion. Sunday worship needs this lie to survive, but the truth is, God's commandments are eternal. All his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever. Psalm 111:7-8. The final test. Obedience versus tradition. In the last days, the beast will force worship, and the issue won't be just about a day. It will be about obedience. God's people will be identified by one thing. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. If the law was nailed to the cross, then why does Revelation say God's people will be keeping it in the final hour? Closing warning, the law still stands. Friend, you have been lied to. The cross did not erase the 10 Commandments. It fulfilled the sacrificial system. Jesus didn't die so we could break the Sabbath. He died so we could be forgiven when we did, and empowered by grace to obey. Do not fall for the cheap gospel that trades obedience for tradition. The law is still in effect, and the Sabbath is still the sign. To reject it is to reject the authority of the one who gave it.